Masechet Kiddushin, Daf Kaf Het. We've been talking about Gilgul, not as in reincarnation, but rather about while you're at it, oaths. If I have a right to impose an oath on you legally, let's say because you are modeb b'miksat, I said that you owe me $100, and you said no, I already paid you 50, I only owe you 50, so then I can come and say you have to swear. That's a regular oath that a court will require modeb b'miksat. We learned yesterday that once I'm allowed to impose on you a law for an oath for one reason, I can roll in and include, oh, while you're at it, I'd like you to also make a vow about land that you owe me. Even though generally there's no modeh miksat regarding land, we roll that in. So now we ask, Ad hechan gilgul shivua. To what extent can I make you swear? Since I'm making you swear about one thing, how far can this go? Rav Yehuda name of Rav says it can go quite far. I can even say, hey, while you're at it, that you're swearing that you owe me only $50, I want you to take an oath that you are not my Eved Kena'ani, right? So basically, I'm accusing you of being not just that you are an Eved Kena'ani, that you belong to me, I owe you. Take a vow that I don't own you as an Eved Kena'ani. Now this would be a very serious accusation, because that would mean that I'm claiming you are not born Jewish, right? You're a non-Jew, and that you were sold into slavery and you are owned that now forever, you and your children, and be inherited. Like, this is like quite a serious claim. It's much more than a monetary claim. It's a stain on your own lineage and status and all that. So, with the Gemara wonders, wait a second, if I impose an oath on you for that, I shouldn't be allowed to do that. Not only should I not be allowed to do that, I should be put in cherem, be ostracized for making this accusation. Listen, if I have proof, okay, that's one thing. I have two witnesses that come and say, we know this person and so on. We saw that person be sold, and he was a non-Jew, and now he's an Eved Kena'ani. Okay, but just to make up an accusation based on doubt and take this vow, right? I should be ostracized for even making such a claim. How do you know that? The Tanya. There's laws about slander. If I go and call someone else, you are an Ived, you are an Eved Kena'ani, so I get put in nidui. I'm trying to claim that he is outside the community, so I should be put outside the community. You can't just go and call people names. These has legal significance, these names. And if the word gets out there, it'll be really problematic. So you can't just do that. A mamzer, I go and say, oh, that person is a mamzer. So then I deserve 40 lashes, right? If he's a mamzer, he won't be able to marry people. A lot of people, he'll have a lot of suffering. So I deserve that suffering, unless I have proof, of course. But just to make that claim, that's slander. Rasha, I come and say, that person is an evildoer. He did this and that. So then that person is permitted to harass me, do things like if I have a barber shop, he can open a barber shop right next door to me and take all my customers. Generally, not allowed to do that. So if I do that because I'm harassing him by spreading these bad rumors about him, and then he'll lose business. So he's allowed to do that back to me, even in ways that normally you wouldn't be allowed. So back to our case, I come and say, listen, you have to swear that you owe me $50. While you're at it, I'm making a claim that you're an Eved Kena'ani and you belong to me. You can't just make a claim like that. So that is going too far. Ela amar Rava, hishavali shelo nimkarta li be'aved ivri. Rava says, no, it means that I can't roll in and say you're an Eved Kena'ani, but I can roll in and say, swear to me that you were not sold to me as an Eved Ivri. Eved Ivri is a monetary claim. I'm not claiming anything about your status, about your parents, about your lineage, about all of that. That's which would be very derogatory. But rather, yes, you're Jewish, and I'm making a monetary claim that you owe me this, 5-6 years, however many years of service. So that's what you can roll in. We ask about that. Well, that would kind of be obvious, right? Just like I can, while you're swearing to me about $50, I can roll in other claims that I might have that are monetary claims. And this is just a monetary claim, right? There's nothing, just saying you owe me. when the slave has to sell himself because he's too poor or because he stole, right? Because he can't come up with the money, $1,000, whatever it is. After all, he could redeem himself or whatever. So it's really just a monetary claim, and therefore, shouldn't that be obvious that we can roll in such a thing? What's Rava even teaching us? The answer is Rava is following his own opinion, because elsewhere he says that an Eved Ivri is not only a monetary obligation. If I own an Eved Ivri, it's not just that he owes me service. That would be like a worker, right? If we agreed on the contract, listen, you have to provide 100 hours of service, or you're a contract for 6 years, right? So you're contracted for 6 years. You owe me this amount of work. So that's a monetary obligation. And most people think that Eved Ivri works like that. It's just a monetary obligation, but not Rava. Rava thinks that Eved Ivri is more similar, not the same, but a little bit more similar to an Eved Kanani, where his own body is in fact owned by the master. So therefore, according to Rava, this is more than a simple monetary claim. I am making a claim that your body is owned by me, and that's his chidush, that you can roll in, even though initially I'm only imposing a swear for money for $50. Still, I can impose a swear for that you can swear. I can claim that you're an Eved Ivri, and you have to swear that you are not my Eved Ivri. Now we ask, now you went too far the other way. Yachi hainu karka. If the Eved Ivri is in fact owned by the master, then it's the same as land, right? There's a lot of similarities between the laws of acquiring land and that of slaves. And so if you're saying, yes, I own the body of the Eved Kanani, that's the same as I own the land, and we already established that you can do Gilgul from money to land. So certainly this would be obvious that you can do Gilgul from money to an Eved Ivri. Why would I have thought otherwise? And the answer is there is a difference, because sometimes land is sold privately, right? I don't always want to publicize that I had to sell land, because then people say, oh look, I guess he's poor, and that's why he had to sell the land. So in that case, there is always a possibility that maybe this land you did sell to me and was not publicized. So I say, you know what, I want you to swear that this land does not belong to me. So that makes sense that we should impose a swear for land, even though you can't do it only for land. If you're already doing it for money, you can roll in a swear about land. But that's not true for slaves. Right? Slaves are people. And it causes a lot of publicity when a person is sold. Did you hear about this one, right? And he could talk also. And so, if in fact this was true, that I bought you as a slave one time, then people would know about it. And the fact that there's no publicity about it, so I might have thought that therefore I cannot impose an oath on you. So even if we knew the law about rolling in land for a monetary claim, I might have still thought, without Rava's teaching, that I can only roll in land, because in fact sometimes land is not publicly known, and so it could very well be true that you owe me this land, and so I want you to swear that you don't. So it makes sense to impose it there, but not for slaves, where everyone would know, would have heard if I had bought you as a slave. And the fact that nobody knows that means that you're not a slave, and therefore I cannot impose. Oh, that's what I would have thought. Kamash Malan, and Rava teaches us that it is in fact the same. And so it's not so obvious. It's not obvious that it's like money, because according to Rava, a slave is in fact owned, and in that sense is like land. And it's even not obvious that that would be the same as land, because slave has generates more publicity, and so that is the extent to which one can roll in one swear for another. We now come to the next Mishnah, which is about barter. Kol ha'na'aseh damim ba'acher kevan shezacha zeh nitchayev zeh b'chalifav. Anything that is being used as money for something else, once one party acquires one of them, one of the items, the other one is obligated to give the other item. All right, we need some explanation. We already know that money does not effectuate a monetary transaction when it comes to movable items. So in a general case of a movable item, I'm going to sell you a cow, and so even if you give me money, right? So this is not an exchange. It's not a barter, but money has value, but it's the value that's stamped on it, and not necessarily intrinsic value. And so, with the only thing that needs to be transferred is the cow, and the cow can only be transferred by pulling it. So the transfer of the money just means, okay, thank you, you paid for it, but the transfer is not final. You don't actually own it. It'll make a difference if, for example, the cow dies. So if you already pulled it, then it's your problem. If you didn't pull it yet, and I'm the seller, it's still in my property, and is my problem, and I have to produce another cow. So that's the general limitation regarding money. However, if it's barter, and I'm going to give you a cow, and you're going to give me a donkey, so we're trading. In this case, right, neither one is really the currency for the other. It's a trade. And so the Mishnah is teaching us that as soon as I pull on the donkey, even if you didn't pull on the cow yet, the exchange is already effectuated, right? Once I pull the donkey and now the donkey is mine, automatically the cow becomes yours, and therefore if it dies, even before you take physical possession of it, it is your loss. So barter is different from money. Now, keep in mind the Gemara is going to read this at first as kol hanaseh damim. Damim generally means money, and it's going to wonder, well, if this means that maybe this means coin. Can you do barter with a coin, basically, which is not exactly barter, but would just be selling. So we're going to read it that way initially. So keep that in mind. But we're going to conclude that, yes, this is talking about barter. And it gives us an example. If we exchange an ox for a cow or a donkey for an ox, once one party pulls that animal, one of the animal that he's acquiring, the other party automatically gives over ownership, or rather the one that's the other. If I pull your ox, then automatically you acquire my cow. So that's an example. The Gemara is going to also talk about the relationship between the rule and the example. How is the example saying the same thing as the rule? It seems so. So we just explained the Mishnah in a straightforward way. Here's a rule. Here's an example. We're talking about barter with items, not with currency. All right, straightforward Mishnah. Now the Gemara is however, going to offer three different ways of reading it. Okay, chalipin ma'inihu matbeya. Now, when they say here exchange, right? Lahachalif literally means to exchange. What is it talking about? What item are we using to exchange that is damim, that is worth money? The exact phrase was na'asa damim. So at first we say maybe matmeya, maybe it means a coin, and so I'm exchanging the value of a coin for the value of your cow. Shema mina matbeya na'aseh halipin. Wait, if it's coin, so then is this Mishnah teaching us that a coin can be used for an exchange? Gemara elsewhere in Baba Metziah proves that is not true. The problem with the coin, even though coins in those days especially were made out of silver or gold, so they actually did have intrinsic value, but their value is not tied to their weight in gold, but rather it's fiat money, right? Fiat currency is the value that's stamped on it, and even if it's rubbed out or it doesn't really weigh that amount, that doesn't matter. You can still use it in the marketplace because it says this is $1. That is $1. It doesn't matter if it's on paper or if it's on a silver dollar that's or made out of whatever it's made out of, right? The fiat money has its value because the government says this is the value of it, independent of its intrinsic worth. And so therefore, the Gemara there concluded that a currency cannot be used as barter because it's not bartering, right? Currency is a completely different concept from barter. especially fiat currency. Okay, so therefore it can't mean that it's talking about money. Amar Rav Yehuda hachi kamar kol hanishom damim be'acher kevan shezachaze nitchayev b'chalifin. Rather means anything that has an appraised value. Either it actually has an appraised value or you can appraise it. So anything that does have intrinsic value, once one party acquires that item, so the item that that party is giving over automatically transfers to the other party. So that's what Mishnah is talking about. Not money, but items. And this is obviously the case. This is what the Mishnah means. Because it follows up with an example. And the example doesn't say if I traded money for an ox, but rather it says clearly an ox for a cow, a donkey for an ox. So we're talking about things that we are exchanging. And that is a good, straightforward reading of the Mishnah. As we said, this makes a lot of sense. Okay, even though this is the conclusion and this is the basic understanding, nevertheless, the Gemara wants to explore, wait a second, how might have we read it regarding money? Well, because it is still a theoretical possibility out there, an opinion out there that you can use money as a form of exchange, right? I'm kind of thinking about the intrinsic value of this coin. Right? And anytime we use coins, let's see, even for Kiddushin, when you say, do you have in mind the printed value or the intrinsic value? If it's like a silver dollar, that's actually worth more than the printed value. So according to what, so maybe in fact you could do an exchange. If I was trading some ancient coin that's now worth $10,000 on the market, I'll trade it for you for whatever you're going to give me. Right? So maybe you could use currency in exchange as barter. So according to that, how could we have read the example of my kesad? So we say as follows: Hachi kamar perot nami avdei halipin kesad echlif besar shor bepara o basar chamor beshor kevan shezachaze nitchayev bechalipin. So you have to read the kesad as adding another law. The first statement says you can use currency as an exchange, as long as you're using it as for its intrinsic value, not for its printed value. Yes, you can use currency for exchange. And once one party acquires one, either way, then the other party will have acquired the other. That's rule number one. And then it adds another rule. Ketzad, it wants to tell you also that produce. You can also use produce in exchange. When the Gemara here says produce, this is weird. Why is it saying produce and then using animals as an example? Okay, produce generally means things that grow. Here it's not being used in that way. Here it's being used to mean anything other than utensils. Why? What does that have to do with utensils? Because the origin of kinyan chalipin is from Boaz and acquiring something with a shoe. Shoe is utensil, clothing, cups, bowls, anything that's a usable item is a utensil. So there is a possibility, an opinion that you can only do kinyan chalipin with a utensil, not just with fruit, animals, and other just things. So when it says perot here, means anything. Okay, so this is what I mean. The kesad is saying not only with money, but you can also do kinyan chalipin, and not only with utensils, but even with perot, meaning any item. How so? If we exchange an ox for a cow, or here it says the meat of an ox for a cow, but lav davka, it doesn't necessarily have to be meat. It could be meat of a dead animal, it could be a live animal, it's all the same, or the meat of a donkey for an ox. Once I acquire one of them, you automatically acquire the other. So now it's expanding, and that would be another way of reading the Mishnah if you did want to read the first line as talking about coins. Now, okay, that reading would still be good, would be fine according to Rav Sheshat, who says that produce you can use as an exchange, right? And then so animals are a good example. They're not produce again, but they are just items, things. And so then both of the readings we had above would make sense. But there is another opinion according to Rav Nachman, and he says that you cannot make an exchange with produce, it has to be a vessel. So how will you explain the Mishnah according to Rav Nachman? And the answer is Hachikamar. Yesh tamim shehen kehalipin. Rav Nachman will explain that actually this Mishnah is not talking about kinyan chalipin at all, because if so, it would only have to be utensils. You couldn't give examples of animals, which are just things. Instead, Rav Nachman can explain that this Mishnah is talking about acquiring something with money, and even though generally money transfer cannot effectuate a transaction, but we're talking about a case that's an unusual one where it could. How so? Right? So there is damim that can work like an exchange. An example of that would be if we decide that I am going to buy your ox for the value of a cow. The value of a cow, let's say, is $1,000. So basically, we're doing a money exchange, right? I'm buying your ox for $1,000. Right, or a donkey for an ox, doesn't matter what the items are, and then we say, listen, okay, so now I have the ox, right, and I owe you $1,000, and instead of paying you, we say, you know what? Instead of paying the debt, I'll give you an actual cow. So here, take this cow in exchange for canceling the debt. And so we end up with with something that is, it looks like a barter, a kinyan halipin, even though it's actually a monetary transaction that just ended up paying the money with a cow, or making the money into a loan, and the loan being canceled on account of the cow. And that will work, even though money generally doesn't work. In that case, such an exchange will be fine. My tama, savala could be Yochanan damar devar Torah ma'ot konot. The reason why it works is because Rav Nachman will follow the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan, we did mention once, thinks that according to Torah law, a monetary exchange is just fine. And if you acquire even just the money, then the other item is automatically transferred. And it's the rabbis that came and said, we don't want to be able to use this deoraita law because it may lead to complications. So, for example, let's say if you have some produce in your storehouse, and we're not even near the storehouse, we just do an exchange of money, right? So I give you some money, and now, right, by you taking the money on the doraita level, I acquired the produce in that storehouse. Well, what if now a fire breaks out in that storehouse? You're not going to bother to go put out the fire because it's already mine and it'll be my loss. And so when we're not physically there and I don't physically pull on it, then it's never quite so clear whose it is. At what point, and if it's in your storehouse and I didn't pull on it, you're not going to be careful to save it, and I'm going to come and say it. Yeah, I'm going to come and say, hey, you should have put it out, so it's your responsibility. You're going to say, no, you already took the money, so it's my responsibility. It makes things much clearer if you have to require some physical possession of actually pulling on it, right? And that solves disputes. So the rabbi said, don't use money. However, since from the letter of the law, money exchange works, so then it will work over here also when we're doing a money exchange, and then it turning into not paying with money but paying with a cow, because milta de shichech gazu barabanan, milta de la shichech lo gazu barabanan. The rabbis only made their decrees in the common cases. Something is uncommon case, and this is an uncommon case. People don't usually start off saying that this will be a monetary transaction and then say, oh, it's a loan, you know what, I'll pay the loan with another item. So therefore, since it's uncommon, we don't have to worry that it will lead to problems, and so there's no gezerah, and that would be an explanation of the Mishnah according to Rav Nachman. Good. However, according to the Shakish, he says that even on the Torah level, monetary exchange does not work for movables, but rather you actually have to pull it. So then there's actually no way that the exchange will work. It's not just because of a gezerah that we can say the rabbis didn't make a gezerah here. So if the Shakish would follow, would be in agreement with Rav Sheshat, who says you can do a kinyan chalipin with any items, with produce, with animals, then he can explain the Mishnah in that way, right? That's a straightforward reading of the Mishnah that is talking about kinyan chalipin. But what if you mix and match the other way? If you have Resh Lakish and put Resh Lakish and Rav Nachman together, such that we can't say that the Mishnah is talking about kinyan chalipin, because there is no kinyan chalipin with produce and animals, so that's ruled out. Umat be'ala kaneh, and we're also following the Shakish, and who says that monetary exchange is not good on the Doraita level, so you can't explain it that way either. How could you possibly explain it? The answer is there is no way. You can't mix and match those two opinions. You have to say that Shakish would follow Rav Sheshat. Rav Sheshat is a little bit later than Rav Shakish. The point is that they follow those two opinions would have to go together, and there you would not be able to explain the Mishnah if you followed Rav Nachman and Resh Lakish. Baruch Adonai Olam. Amen. Amen.